Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, my big thanks to the Quaker Council for European Affairs and my colleague Molly Scott-Cato for giving me this chance to talk to your conference, launching the report, Building Peace Together, a practical reference. I'm really sorry I can't be with you in person, but I have other commitments back home in Ireland, but I'm with you in spirit. This report is very timely. We live in really troubled times where wars and conflict are flaring in many spots around the world, some of them right on our doorsteps. Many of our closest neighbours, indeed some of the countries with which the European Union has a commitment to closely partnering, have descended into war before our very eyes. Countries such as the Ukraine, Syria, were places of relative stability and prosperity a decade or so ago. The deterioration of conditions in those countries and others in our near neighbourhood has direct and immediate consequences for the European Union, not to speak of the destruction wrought on cities, on lives in those countries themselves. The European Union has a very special responsibility when it comes to promoting peace. Our existence as a community and a union was born out of a desire to consign the horrors of the 20th century firmly to the past. Our founding fathers created a very unique experiment in international relations. They convinced sovereign states, originally 6 and now 28, to put aside their historic differences and pool their sovereignty in the interests of the common good. Significantly, what is now the European Union began by creating a supranational authority over coal and steel resources, the raw materials of the machinery of war. Swords were literally beaten into ploughshares as energies were concentrated on goals like making the European continent self-sufficient in food production. From the outset, too, the European visionaries, men like Monet, Schuman, Adenauer and de Gasperi, looked beyond our own continent. They considered Europe's role and responsibility in the world, particularly in developing countries, so many of which had been colonized by European powers. We need constant reminding of where we have come from and where the world's most successful peace process has delivered to generations of Europeans. It is all too easy to forget and to slip into seeing violence as a default setting for conflict resolution. The purpose of this report is to draw our attention to the idea that peace is the norm of human relations. The vast majority of people go about our daily lives, putting up with mild irritations, managing interpersonal tensions without any recourse to violence. What is true on the personal level can be true on the state level too. Your report highlights an important statistic. 77%, that's 77% of all violent conflicts over the past 35 years ended through a peace agreement. Only 16 areas of conflict ended through a military victory. In my own country of Ireland, this was borne out. 2018 marks the 20th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, which brought to an end 3 decades of conflict in Northern Ireland. A conflict which cost 3,500 lives and which spread across the island of Ireland and indeed to Britain too. The experience of the Northern Ireland peace process, one that was underpinned by the European Union, is a casebook study of the key factors the Quaker Council has identified as contributing to violence. You rightly point out that in order to bring about a meaningful peace, we must address the underlying causes. Issues such as justice, fairness, human rights, minority rights, rule of law, accountable democratic institutions. And you are right too when you point to the myriad peace-building tools referred to as soft power. Indeed, the European Union is often referred to as the ultimate soft power actor on the international stage. And given our history, I hope we can keep it that way. It's something we should be immensely proud of. Recent conflicts in our region have led large numbers of migrants to come to our countries, fleeing violence, destruction and tyrannical oppression. In these huddled masses, they choose the European Union, and they choose it because our family of nations represents hope in a world of despair. It represents light in a time of deep darkness. We are viewed as a beacon of justice and peace, and with those foundations we can build prosperity. As I experienced in my own country, in building and maintaining the peace, one has to engage at the very immediate and local level. It is in local communities that injustices are felt, that lack of inclusiveness builds resentment. The role of religious actors in these processes can be hugely positive. In my role as Vice President in charge of the European Parliament's dialogue with churches, religious and non-confessional organisations, I've come to appreciate the tremendous contribution of these groups in their communities. This report is testimony to a long history of the Quakers in promoting very practical measures to build peace. I hope your efforts can bear fruit and that foreign policy makers will avail of your great experience and of this resource. I'll finish with a quote from Pope Francis on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Treaties of Rome. He reminded us, "To be workers for peace entails promoting a culture of peace. This requires love for the truth, without which authentic human relationships cannot exist. It also requires the pursuit of justice, without which oppression becomes a rule in any community." Very wise words. So I wish you every success with this publication and with your launch event today.